Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sift through the information so you don't have to, handing you the key knowledge you need. Today, we're plunging into Amazon PPC advertising, specifically day parting. The idea sounds brilliant, doesn't it? Run your ads only when people are most likely to buy. We hear it can boost conversion rates, maybe up to 30% in some cases. Sounds fantastic, but anything that promising usually has another side to it. So our mission today is to really dig into those hidden complexities, the challenges, the limitations, the risks advertisers face trying to make day parting work.
That's exactly right. The potential's there, definitely exciting, but the reality on the ground, much more complicated. To really get day parting, you need to see where it gets snagged. So today, we're going to unpack all of that for you. We'll start with the platforms themselves, the tools, and their inherent limitations. Then we'll get into the weeds with data issues that can really derail things. After that, we'll look at the bigger picture, strategic hurdles, operational headaches, and then external factors, the unpredictable stuff. And finally, we'll zoom out to cover global aspects and some pretty important ethical questions, too.
Okay, let's start right there, pulling back the curtain on the tools Amazon actually gives you. Sounds simple, just scheduling ads, but what are these roadblocks you mentioned?
Well, the first big one is what Amazon's own tools let you do with bids. Then native schedule-based rules, they mostly focus on increasing bids. So yeah, you can bump bids up, say 10% to 50% during hours you think are prime time. But what's crucially missing is a solid way to decrease bids effectively during off-peak times when performance drops. So advertisers often just have to leave their baseline bids running even when nobody's really clicking or buying. That kind of kills the whole cost optimization angle for those slow periods. It's like having an accelerator but no real brake.
Right, so you can easily spend more, but it's hard to spend less strategically. That feels like a major gap for efficiency. Are there other catches with these built-in tools?
Oh yeah. Another biggie is conflict. You can't use schedule-based bid rules at the same time as other rule-based bidding strategies like target ROAS. If you turn on schedule rules, it pauses your target ROAS rules and vice versa, so you're forced to choose. You might miss out on the benefits of one type of automation because you want to use the other. You just can't layer them. And here's something else. Those bid increases from day parting, they stack up. They're additive with other bid changes, like placement boosts. Let's say you have a 20% increase for a certain time and a 10% boost for top of search placement. Boom, that's a combined 30% bid increase. This can easily push your cost per click, your CPC, higher than you want, maybe even past what's profitable for that click.
Wow, okay, so just by using the tools as intended, you could accidentally blow your budget because these rules multiply. I'm guessing this isn't the same across all the different Amazon ad types?
You guessed it. Big inconsistencies. Sponsored products campaigns. They have better options for native scheduling, even down to the hour. But sponsored brands and sponsored display, they lack those direct schedule-based bid rules. You're stuck using budget rules or just manually pausing campaigns. It really makes a unified approach difficult. And display ads are even trickier. They focus on retargeting, right? Product views. So conversions might happen days after the click. Applying simple time-based rules gets complicated fast. And thinking globally, these schedule-based bid rules just aren't available everywhere. Large parts of Africa, South America, lots of markets lack this feature entirely. That's a huge hurdle for international sellers trying to apply consistent strategies across regions.
It does sound incredibly frustrating if you're trying to manage ads globally. Okay, so the platform tools have limits. What about the money side? Does it cost a lot to get around these limitations?
It absolutely does. To do day parting really well, overcoming those native limits, you often need third-party software platforms. And these tools aren't cheap. You're looking at maybe $100 or $300 per user per month for business plans. For bigger operations, enterprise solutions, those can run from $500 up to $2,000 a month, sometimes more. This high cost basically locks out a lot of smaller businesses and individual sellers. They just can't afford access to the advanced features, creating a gap between them and the larger advertisers.
So a significant financial barrier on top of the technical ones.
Yeah.
Even with these paid tools, how flexible are they? You mentioned rule-based automation.
Yeah.
Does that introduce its own problems?
Yeah, there's a certain rigidity there, too. Most of these rule-based systems apply changes, like a percentage increase or decrease, across all keywords in a campaign. They don't usually adjust based on how individual keywords are performing, like their specific ACOS or spend. They often lack more sophisticated formulaic bidding logic, too. And the controls themselves can be basic, increase, decrease, pause. That's often it. They might lack the really fine-grained control you'd need for complex strategies or responding to very specific conditional situations in the market.
Hmm. So even paying doesn't guarantee perfect flexibility. What's the overall strategic impact, then, of all these tool limits, both technical and financial?
Well, connecting the dots, it forces many advertisers back into manual work. Lots of time spent manually pausing, adjusting budgets, scheduling campaigns. It just doesn't scale well. It eats up time and resources, increases overhead. It's the opposite of the automation dream, really. It also means slower reactions. We'll talk more about data delays later, but these tool limits, combined with data issues, make it hard to respond quickly to competitors. Rivals can swoop in and grab impressions during key moments because you can't adjust fast enough. And fundamentally, it leads to inefficient budget use. You're forced to spend during low conversion times because you can't easily dial back, and you might miss chances during peak times if your setup isn't agile. It adds up to wasted budget over time.
It really sounds like the system itself can push you towards inefficiency, almost penalizing optimization efforts, unless you invest heavily externally. Okay, that covers the tools. Let's shift to the foundation,
Yeah.
the data. Why is day-parting data such a minefield?
Oh, it's a real maze. First off, there's data latency, the delay. Amazon Marketing Stream gives you hourly data, which sounds good, but
Yeah.
it only updates every 4 hours. Think about how fast things change online. 4 hours is a lifetime in some cases. It stops you from making truly immediate adjustments. Plus, those hourly reports, they only cover the last 30 days.
Only 30 days.
Yep. So trying to analyze long-term trends like seasonality over months or years, that data window makes it really tough.
A 4-hour delay in only a month of history. That definitely limits real-time decisions and long-term planning.
Let's get into something you mentioned earlier, attribution. Knowing what click actually led to the sale, how does that get messy?
This is a critical point attribution window conflicts. Amazon mostly uses a last touch model. The last ad click gets the credit for the sale within a certain window. Typically, it's a 24-hour window by default, but it varies. It's 7 days for sponsored products and 14 days for sponsored brands and display.
Okay, 7 and 14 days. Right. And here's the problem. Imagine a click happens at 2 a.m., but the customer actually buys something at 10 a.m. the same day. Under the standard window, that 2 a.m. click might get the credit for the 10 a.m. conversion.
So you might think your 2 a.m. ads are working great.
Exactly, when really the purchase decision happened much later.
Ah.
You end up wrongly crediting those off-peak hours. And this isn't trivial. Studies suggest this misalignment can cause short-term campaigns to overstate their return on ad spend, their ROAS, by somewhere between 18% and 22%.
Wow, 18 to 22%. That's huge.
It is. It means you need custom solutions, like using third-party tools maybe, to specifically exclude clicks from certain late-night hours, say 12 a.m. to 4 a.m. when calculating ROAS, just to get a more accurate picture of when conversions are really driven.
That's a massive potential error in your performance data. It makes you question relying too heavily on historical data, too.
Yeah.
We always hear, use your historical data, but can it actually become a trap with departing?
It absolutely can be a trap. Historical data is valuable, no question, but it can become obsolete fast. Think about major market shifts, pandemics, big economic changes, supply chain chaos. These things totally change how people behave daily, making your old day-parting patterns useless. You really need a mix, a hybrid model using historical and real-time data. There's also a big risk of over-optimization if you just blindly cut out all your historically off-peak hours.
You might miss people.
Exactly. You might miss niche audiences, like, say, night shift workers who shop at different times. This kind of aggressive exclusion could cut your sales by maybe 5% to 7%. And get this, it could even lead to algorithmic penalties from Amazon. If your impression share drops too low, maybe below 70%, it can limit the A9 algorithm's ability to learn about your product and rank it effectively.
So trying to be too efficient could actually hurt your visibility overall.
Precisely. And then there's a statistical trap called Simpson's paradox.
Simpson's paradox, okay.
Yeah, it's a bit counterintuitive. Imagine you look at data for mornings and evenings separately. Maybe strategy A looks best in the morning and strategy A looks best in the evening. But when you combine all the data, strategy B might suddenly look better overall. It happens because of hidden factors or how the groups are weighted. For day parting, it means analyzing data in chunks versus all together can give you completely opposite ideas about the best times to advertise. It makes historical data potentially unreliable. We also see things like recency bias, focusing too much on the last few days or weeks and ignoring longer trends, leads to unstable strategies. And finally, forecasting models built only on past data. They struggle when current conditions go beyond anything seen before. They just can't reliably predict the future then.
So more data isn't always better. and interpreting it correctly is key. It really boils down to understanding correlation versus causation, right?
That's the heart of it. You see a spike in sales at 3 p.m. Does it because it's 3 p.m. or something else happening at 3 p.m. that drives sales? And your ads just happen to be running then. Making that distinction, correlation or causation, is vital. Getting it right is how you unlock those potential 20% to 35% efficiency gains from hitting genuinely impactful time slots. Getting it wrong means you're just chasing shadows.
Okay, the data maze is clear. So if the data is tricky, scaling these strategies across huge product catalogs must be where the strategic and operational challenges really kick in. Sounds incredibly complex.
It is immensely complex. Scaling brings, first, volume and velocity constraints. We're talking massive amounts of performance data from thousands of products. Processing that data in near real time to create unique schedules for each product. The computational demands grow exponentially. Then there's data integration, trying to link day-parting data with inventory systems, pricing engines, other ad platforms, especially if you sell across multiple channels. It's a huge technical challenge. Not having the infrastructure to handle the data storage and computation can stall everything. And attribution issues. They get worse with bigger catalogs. Remember the 24-hour window. Different products have different buying cycles, different lag times. Attributing sales accurately across a diverse catalog is incredibly hard. Machine learning models for optimization, they need serious resources, sometimes up to 100 times more memory for full calculations on large catalogs. Sellers often have to compromise, optimize less often, or use less granular data.
100 times more memory. So it's not just about algorithms, but having the sheer computing power. What other technical scaling issues pop up?
Well, there are practical limits, like API rate limits. If something goes wrong or demand surges, these limits can stop you from making quick manual fixes across many campaigns. Machine learning models also need tons of training data. New products suffer from a cold start problem, no history to learn from. And the complexity of training grows massively with catalog size. Traditional algorithms often just don't scale well. They struggle with the high dimensionality, lots of products, lots of time slots, and data sparsity, meaning lots of empty data points. Performance degrades without specialized approaches, and the more you automate at scale, the bigger the risk if something goes wrong. An algorithmic error or system failure doesn't just affect one campaign, it can impact your entire catalog. The potential damage scales up. Finally, making it all work requires tight coordination across teams, marketing, inventory, fulfillment. That gets way harder as the company and catalog grow.
So many interconnected parts. It seems like pushing hard on day-parting optimization could easily conflict with other business priorities. Yeah. How do advertisers balance this?
That's a constant balancing act. Aggressive day-parting without thinking broadly leads back to those over-optimization risks. You might cut out potentially valuable niche audiences just because they buy during off-peak times, or you might disrupt campaigns that were performing okay overall. And again, the risk of algorithmic penalties. Cutting bids too much, dropping impression share below that 70% threshold can hurt your organic ranking long-term via the A9 algorithm. And a really crucial operational link is inventory. You have to sync your ads with your stock levels. Running ads for out-of-stock products is just wasted money. Worse, it can lead to higher order defect rates, maybe 12% to 18% during restocking, because shoppers click, can't buy, get frustrated, or buy from a competitor who is in stock.
Right, you need the ads running and the product available. It's not just about time. So with all this automation and complexity, how vital is the human element? Can we just let the machines run the show?
Absolutely not. It's almost paradoxical, right? The more powerful the AI gets, the more essential human oversight becomes. AI is fantastic at processing data, spotting patterns humans would miss, but it can also inherit biases from the data it's trained on or lead to ethically questionable outcomes if left unchecked. We can't just set it and forget it. Humans need to provide strategic direction, handle creative problem solving, and frankly, be accountable. That's why models like Human in the Loop or HITL governance are so important. Regulations are emerging, like the EU AI Act, the NIST AI risk management framework in the US. They mandate human oversight for high-risk AI, which advertising systems could fall under. It's about preventing bias, ensuring compliance, building trust, and practically, your systems need robust manual overrides. If the automation fails or does something weird, you need predetermined backup plans, bid adjustments, budget rules that a human can execute within minutes.
Okay, humans are still firmly in the driver's seat, or at least they need to be ready to grab the wheel. Let's shift gears now to the really unpredictable stuff, external factors. How do things outside our control mess up day-parting plans?
This is where it gets really challenging. Because the world doesn't sit still. Market volatility, unexpected events, they can completely upend consumer behavior. Think about global crises like the pandemic. Suddenly, everyone's daily routines change dramatically. More time at home, established dayparting schedules based on commuting times out the window. Geopolitical conflicts, too. They create uncertainty, impact supply chains, affect demand. We're seeing businesses cite this as a major concern. 36% think it'll be the biggest issue in the next year. Economic shifts are huge, too. High inflation, instability. Consumers change spending habits fast. About 43% cut back generally. 38% hunt for discounts. This really disrupts patterns, especially for non-essential goods.
So carefully planned peak times can just evaporate due to news headlines or economic reports. What about supply chains, which you mentioned? That feels very relevant now.
Definitely. Supply chain disruptions directly impact ad schedules. If you don't have the product, you can't advertise it. We saw advertisers cutting Q4 marketing budgets by as much as 50% because of these issues. It also shifts timing. Holiday ads starting way earlier, like November 1st, with messages like shop early before it's gone, that changes the whole seasonal rhythm. We're also seeing media consumption patterns change. The rise of ad-supported video on demand, AVOD, growing fast, maybe 23% in 2025. It makes viewing less predictable than old-school linear TV, messing with traditional primetime ideas. And don't forget emotions. Big crises shift how people feel. Their psychological state might become more important than their usual routine for deciding when they're receptive to ads.
It feels like advertisers are trying to hit a moving target on a moving platform. And the platform itself, Amazon, is constantly changing too, right? How did their algorithm updates affect day parting?
That's a huge factor. Amazon's algorithm evolution, particularly the shift from A9 to A10, has direct consequences. A10 seems to put more weight on organic sales history and overall seller authority, potentially reducing the direct impact of finely tuned, day-parted PPC campaigns on your overall product visibility compared to before. It also seems to value external traffic, more traffic coming from outside Amazon. That means you need to think about coordinating day parting across different platforms, not just on Amazon. And perhaps the biggest shift, enhanced personalization. The algorithms are getting much smarter at tailoring the shopping experience to the individual user in real time. This advanced personalization could potentially override broad, schedule-based day parting rules. The algorithm might show your ad based on that specific user's predicted behavior, regardless of your general schedule.
Wow, so the algorithm itself might ignore your carefully planned schedule if it thinks it knows better for that specific customer. That really complicates things. And amidst all this, you still have competitors doing their own thing.
Exactly. You have to factor in competitive activity. Your main rival might be capturing, say, 40% or more of the impression share during a key evening slot like 7 p.m. If your day parting strategy doesn't account for that dynamically, you might just be pulling back when they're pushing hard, losing visibility. So you need counter strategies, maybe staggering your bids slightly differently from theirs, or running geo-targeted campaigns in areas where they're less active. Think about coffee brands, everyone bidding high at 7 a.m. Maybe you find a slightly different niche time or place. It also means avoiding costly bid wars, maybe capping your daily spend at, say, 2 times your target ACOS to keep things sane.
It's a constant game of cat and mouse. Given all these complexities and unknowns, what are the big gaps remaining in our understanding of day parting, from both research and industry perspectives?
Even with all the tech and data, there are still significant knowledge gaps. Privacy regulations, for one, are making tracking harder. Restrictions on cookies, like under GDPR, really limit our ability to track users over time across different sites and devices. Remember, 73% of third-party cookies are tracker cookies, and 40% apparently breach lifecycle rules. This makes accurate cross-platform attribution and measuring long-term effects incredibly difficult. We also lack solid unified theories explaining how time influences consumer decisions across different contexts. What about circadian rhythms? Cultural differences in perceiving time, how do these really play out, and how do people process ads they see at different times across multiple devices or platforms simultaneously? We don't fully understand that synchronization. Most research is short-term too. We miss longer seasonal cycles, how consumers adapt over time, whether strategies are sustainable. And the research is very Western-centric, mostly North America and Europe. We know much less about effective temporal patterns in big emerging markets. Plus, we need more analysis on how things differ between industries, beyond just simple B2B versus B2C splits.
So fundamental questions remain unanswered, impacting strategy and measurement. Okay, let's broaden the scope further: global operations and ethical duties. What are the key time zone headaches for international sellers?
Ooh, this is a big one for global sellers. The core issue is Amazon's backend systems often default to UTC or maybe Pacific Time, PST, this creates immediate mismatches. If you're in New York, EST, and want your ads to peak at 7 p.m. local time, you actually need to schedule things based on 4 p.m. PST in the Amazon system. Get this wrong. You could waste maybe 30% of your ad spend just because the timing is off between time zones. And Amazon Marketing Stream reports data in UTC, remember. So you constantly have to convert times manually or build systems to handle it. Then add daylight saving time. The US and Europe change clocks on different dates. This creates temporary, shifting time differences that mess up schedules. Amazon's main advertising API doesn't handle DST automatically. So manual adjustments are needed twice a year per region, risking errors and maybe 5% to 7% CPC inflation during those transition weeks if you don't manage it perfectly.
Just the clock changes cause CPC inflation. Wow. Does this force sellers to break up their campaigns?
Often, yes. Many international sellers have to create separate campaigns for major time zones, one for EST, one for Central Europe, one for Japan, etc., just to apply the right time rules. Then, trying to manage bids across all these fragmented campaigns, even with third-party tools, can be tricky. Synchronization issues can lead to ACOS spikes, maybe 15% to 20% if you accidentally end up with overlapping spend. Plus, some regions have specific rules like advertising curfews. France, for example, bans certain ads overnight from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. local time. You need systems to exclude those times programmatically. And again, the tool limitations, schedule-based bid rules, just aren't available everywhere, forcing awkward workarounds like using VPNs, manual UTC math, or even complex SQL queries.
It sounds like a logistical nightmare requiring constant vigilance for global brands. Okay, let's shift to a really crucial area, responsible advertising. What are the ethical considerations and the risks of algorithmic bias with day parting?
This is critically important. A major ethical concern is the potential to target people when their judgment might be impaired. Think about scheduling ads late at night, targeting people who might be tired, sleep-deprived, and maybe more susceptible to impulsive buying. Is that exploiting vulnerability? It's a serious question.
Yeah.
This also disproportionately affects groups like night shift workers, whose sleep patterns are already disrupted. They might be unfairly targeted or excluded by standard schedules. Then there's algorithmic bias. Systems can develop AI ageism, where they might disadvantage older adults based on biased training data or stereotypes about when older people are online. There's also the risk of digital redlining. Algorithms could inadvertently learn to show high-value ads to affluent groups during peak times, while maybe targeting lower-income groups with less desirable or even predatory offers during off-peak hours. This could reinforce existing inequalities.
That's deeply concerning, the idea that algorithms could perpetuate or even worsen societal biases. What about privacy in this context?
Privacy is huge here. Effective automated day parting often relies on tracking user behavior pretty extensively over time. When are you online? What are you doing? This level of temporal tracking raises major privacy flags, especially if it happens without clear, meaningful consent. Regulations like GDPR in Europe, with those huge potential fines up to 4% of global revenue or 20 million, and CCPA in California are trying to address this, requiring explicit consent for this kind of tracking. And some strategies might cross the line into predatory advertising if they deliberately leverage known periods of vulnerability. We also need to consider accessibility. Day parting can worsen the digital divide. It inherently favors people with consistent 247 internet access. Those with limited access, maybe in rural areas, some elderly individuals, lower income households, might systematically miss out on time-sensitive offers or information. Particularly concerning is the potential exclusion of older populations. We talked about AI ageism, and with projections like 84 million U.S. adults aged 65 plus by 2054, this is a massive group potentially being disadvantaged.
84 million people. That's a huge segment potentially impacted by algorithmic bias. How are regulators looking at all this?
They're definitely starting to pay more attention. Bodies like the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, in the US, and frameworks like the EU AI Act are increasingly scrutinizing automated systems, including advertising tech, for potential discrimination and unfair practices. It signals a growing focus on algorithmic fairness, transparency, and accountability in advertising. Advertisers really need to be proactive about these compliance challenges.
What an incredibly detailed journey. We started with that exciting promise of day parting boosting conversions by maybe 30%, but wow, this deep dive really uncovered layer after layer of challenges. From the tools themselves having limitations, the data being a minefield of latency and attribution errors, the massive strategic and operational hurdles of scaling, then throwing in unpredictable external events, the complexities of global time zones, and finishing with these really significant ethical responsibilities. It's far from simple.
It really isn't. And these aren't just abstract technical points. They hit the bottom line, ROI, brand visibility, but they also hit something deeper, the relationship with the consumer. Issues of trust, fairness, responsibility, they're all woven into how these automated systems are used.
So reflecting on all this, what does it mean for the future? It seems the real challenge in day parting isn't just figuring out the perfect when to run an ad. It's about truly understanding the why behind consumer behavior in time, navigating all these hidden risks we've uncovered, and maybe most importantly, ensuring our strategies stay human-centric, even as automation gets more powerful. It makes you wonder, what new challenges will emerge as AI continues to reshape the advertising landscape?